Yo, hey, this shit easy, nigga. Hey, all I'm talking about, nigga, I'm still out here trying to get it.
Contender Regime Boxing, checking back in with y'all, man. What's going on? So I wanted to touch on Terrence Crawford's interview with the Porterway podcast. Really good interview. I really loved how Terrence Crawford, was speaking candidly and openly. And, he didn't really release any information or, any details about negotiations and what's really going on. And Sean Porter made it clear that, he wasn't going to allow his guys to ask certain questions that were going to, possibly compromise Terrence Crawford, make him look a certain type of way to the public, or get him to release some information that shouldn't be disclosed at this time. So it was a really, it was a tight-knit interview. They didn't touch on anything specific, but what I did like that Terrence Crawford spoke kind of candidly in regard to his thoughts about Earl Spence, his thoughts about the fight. And I think, he said some things that we've heard before, but I'm looking at the tone of how he's saying these things and just the energy overall, and that's what I really want to touch on. But he did mention that first and foremost, Sean Porter asked him, is this a fight that you absolutely have to have? Sean Porter said, for me, the fight with Keith Thurman, I had to have that fight. That was just one of those fights for me. And I believe the Earl Spence fight, once it got to that point with Sean Porter, because at first Sean Porter, he was ducking Earl Spence. We all know that. But it got to a point where Earl Spence was, on his neck so tough where it got to the point where Sean Porter had to fight Earl Spence, and he knew that. But he asked Terrence Crawford, hey, is this one of those fights for you? Is this a fight that you absolutely have to have for your legacy? And I wasn't surprised with Terrence Crawford's answer, because he's alluded to this before. He said this before in so many words, but it was just disappointing because I figured with this fight being extremely close and realistic, and there's a great possibility that this could be made. All the stars are aligning for Undisputed. Everything. I mean, it's here. I was just disappointed with Terrence Crawford. Saying that, hey, I don't need this fight. I'm already gonna be in the Hall of Fame with or without Earl Spence. He did admit that Earl Spence is his rival, and he admitted that this is a fight that all the fans want, that every time he posts a picture on social media or every time he's out and about, people are, Earl Spence, Earl Spence, Earl Spence. And I told y'all that the energy different. Like a while ago, not too long ago, you had Terrence Crawford with that boogeyman energy. He had a whole lot of boogeyman energy, a whole lot of menacing energy. But now it's a little bit different. He just seemed a little nervous. He just seemed a little, like he walking on eggshells. Like, I don't want to say the wrong thing because I could get exposed. Because Earl Spence here, you say if you provoke him, he gonna come out and say what's really going on. Terrence Crawford know that. And then he also know that if he actually take this fight and accept this fight, he gonna have to put up or shut up. He gonna have to prove all that shit that he and his fans have been talking about. Bernie, Bernie the boxer, you know what I'm saying? Bernie the corner man, whatever he do, Bernie the hype man, guys like that's been, talking real greasy, he gonna have to stand on all that shit. So it's either way, he gonna have to answer to everything that's been going on. So, Terrence Crawford, he said, man, look, I'm going to be in the Hall of Fame anyway. I don't need this fight. He did say that, this would be more so for the fans. And I like that, that you would be willing to do it for the fans and just for the sport of boxing. And he did mention, you know, which was kind of contradictory. He said, personally, I want this too, but I don't, he doesn't seem as invested personally. I would have liked to see him more personally invested in this fight. I would like to see him say, hey man, you know what? You know, yeah, I'm a great fighter. I don't need nobody, but I want this motherfucking fight. I want it bad. When I wake up, I'm dreaming about this fight. I'm dreaming about knocking Earl Spence out. I'm dreaming about being undisputed in 2 weight classes. I'm starving for this fight. You feel me? That's the type of energy that I was looking for, because that's the type of energy he had before. You know what I'm saying? Some years before then, you know, slowly but surely, as Earl Spence continued to become greater and greater, that energy started to change. And then when Earl Spence got in an accident, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, it looked like he and Bomac, they was trying to pounce on that, thinking that Earl was fucked up. You know what I'm saying? At one point, when Bomac came out and said, you know, Earl, he be in the club partying, he been drinking and all that, you know what I'm saying? He ain't taking care of himself. They was like, okay, yeah, you know, they seemed like the fight seemed tantalizing to him at that point. You feel me? But now, Earl Spence, they seen that fight with Ugas. I told y'all, he gave Ugas the beat down of the century. They seen that shit, and they moving a little bit different. So like I said, man, I was kind of disappointed that he didn't seem as personally invested in this fight as I thought he should. You feel what I'm saying? But that brings the question, as you see in the title of the video, is Hall of Fame enough? For Terrence Crawford, or for any fighter for that matter. I know some guys have different goals. You know, we don't know what these guys' personal goals are when they first decide that they want to be a boxer. Some guys, they just want to become world champion one day. And that's it. Motherfucker have 10 losses on their record, but they became world champion one time, and that's enough. And hey, that's good. You know what I'm saying? I'm not shitting on nobody's personal goals, you know, because these guys out here are achieving things that 99% of motherfuckers will never achieve, cannot achieve. You feel me? So that's beautiful. You feel me? Big ups to these guys that's going out here and, you know, and achieving they goals and aspirations and they dreams and making it come true. That's dope. I love that. You feel me? But what I'm saying is, for a guy of Terrence Crawford's caliber, for a fighter of Terrence Crawford's caliber, his ability, his skill set, his potential, the things that we all believe that he's capable of doing, and then also things that he's already shown that he can do, is just making it to the Hall of Fame enough. Yes, he was undisputed at 140, but how many memorable fights did he have in that division? Who can you name that you can say that, damn, that was a great fight, or he beat a great opponent? Man, Terrence Crawford overcame a lot of stuff in that fight and showed us his mettle and his greatness. You know what I'm saying? Yes, he's a 3-division world champion, but Adrian Broner is a 4-division world champion. I believe Adrian Broner is going to the Hall of Fame just off of the strength of that, being the youngest 4-division world champion of all time. And only like 4 guys, what was it? I forget what was 4 guys, won divisions in 4 championship, 4 or 5. It ain't a lot of them. You did what I'm saying? So, but when you look at Adrian Broner's career, you like, damn, I mean, but what's that marquee win? Yeah, we know he beat Antonio DeMarco, incredible performance in that fight. But that ain't, you know, motherfuckers gonna look back and be like, man, AB, you underperformed. You underachieved, even with winning titles in 4 divisions and being a Hall of Famer in the future. You feel what I'm saying? But who did you beat though? What's your best performances? You feel me? So for Terrence Crawford, is making it to the Hall of Fame enough? Tim Bradley is in the Hall of Fame. I don't think there's anybody walking around here saying Tim Bradley is the greatest boxer of all time. I don't think anybody is walking around here putting Tim Bradley in their top 10. Is Tim Bradley top 20? Is Tim Bradley top 30? I don't think Tim Bradley is a top 100 fighter of all time. But he's in the Hall of Fame. So is making it to the Hall of Fame enough? for a guy like Terrence Crawford, who I believe has the ability and the skill set to be a top 50 fighter, maybe a top 20 fighter. He beat Earl Spence, become undisputed at 147. You beat a top 3 pound for pound guy, and who also, Earl Spence is also going to the Hall of Fame with or without Terrence Crawford. You beat a guy like that, then you go to 154, you become undisputed in your third weight class, you beat Jermell Charlo. Now we talking about GOAT level. We talking about Floyd Mayweather level at that point. Number 1, number 2, number 3. We talking about GOAT level at that point, top 5. It's a difference when the accomplishments are paired with great opponents. You know what I'm saying? And being able to overcome things and being able to achieve things that people didn't think you was going to achieve. Terrence Crawford ain't fought nobody in his career yet that I was like, okay, he can't beat that guy. I may have only picked against Terrence Crawford one time where I thought, well, okay, man, this dude, I think this dude gonna beat him. Or I think this dude, man, he might be catching him at the wrong time. But at no point in Terrence Crawford's career did I not think that, damn, he can't fuck with this dude. You know what I'm saying? Not at one point did I think Terrence Crawford, man, you know what? It's going to be a lot for him to beat this dude. You know what I'm saying? But that's that with Earl Spence. It's that with a Jermell Charlo. But we focusing more so on the task at hand. Undisputed at 147, the biggest fighter in the sport of boxing, Earl Spence. How can you retire not fighting a guy that everybody, every time you go to the gas station, they talking about Earl Spence. Every time you post a picture on social media, they talking about Earl Spence. You go out to eat, the waiter talking about, man, when you gonna fight Earl Spence? How you gonna retire without fighting that guy? I just don't like the lack of hunger for this fight that I'm getting out of Terrence Crawford. You know what I'm saying? So I pose the question again, is making it to the Hall of Fame enough? Yeah, you might not need this fight financially, and if that's the case, go ahead and make the fight. Take what they offering. If you don't, you made all these millions, you straight financially, you got bread, you good, you don't need to, you said this, you don't need to fight financially if that's what it is. Even though Sean Porter just came out and said, with a fight of this magnitude, you can't blame him for saying, hey, for asking for a nice number and telling them now come back when it's better. I get the negotiations, but I'm going off what Terrence Crawford said. He said he don't need to fight. So if you don't need it financially, you good. You know what I'm saying? You know, you legacy wise, you good. You got 3 division champion, undisputed. You know what I'm saying? So you good in those aspects, but what about, you know, for the legacy, like for real, to have this fight for the people and to prove that you the best and to really get that real notoriety, that real clout. You feel what I'm saying? So when you retire, motherfuckers gonna know it was no stone unturned. If Floyd Mayweather had to retire without fighting Manny Pacquiao, yeah, he still would have been Floyd Mayweather, but it would have been a huge stain on his legacy. If he would have never fought Manny, it would have been a huge stain on Floyd's legacy. You know what I'm saying? A huge stain. He didn't need Manny Pacquiao. He was already seeing millions, already had all the pay-per-view records, already the biggest star in the sport, one of the biggest stars in sports, period, one of the biggest personalities in sports history, the highest paid athlete multiple years in a row and shit like that. But he had to fight Manny Pacquiao. He was already going to the Hall of Fame, but that's not the question here. So, again, is making it to the Hall of Fame enough? Y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments, man. Contender regime, boxing. I'll holler at y'all boys, man.